Hello and welcome to a new video. I am in a different position today because I have a bookcase at this side of my bed now, so I can sit here and have some books on show. But today I'm doing a video I've never done on my channel before, and that is my stats for the previous year. So I don't really have anything to compare to on previous years, so like 2020 or before, because the only thing I really kept track of in 2020 and previous to that was the number of books I read. So I can tell you right now that in 2020 I read 185 books, and in 2021 I read 200. But apart from that, I have nothing else that I can sort of like look back on 2020 to compare. However, 2021 I did start using Corpile, which is the rating system that's created by G over at Book Roast. I will leave her link in the description box below. I believe she has just released Corpile version 3. I haven't had a chance to look at it yet, but I am quite happy with the version 2, which I used all of last year. So I don't think I will actually use version 3, but I still want to check out her video on it just to see what changes she has made to it. So one of the things I love about Corpile is that there is actually a tab called Reading Stats, which basically has pre-made graphs and tables and charts that when you enter all your information in on the main tab, it collates all the information for you. So I am gonna go through this. I'm working on my laptop, so bear with, because my laptop is like it. I wish I could say it's old, but it's not. It just hates me and is so slow, so I don't use it like ever. But I can't exactly bring my desktop computer up here, so bear with me a little bit. But in the year of 2021 I read 200 books. This is the little breakdown. Of these 200 books, I also DNF'd 5 books, so altogether there was 205 books, but 5 of them were DNFs, so I did not finish them. My page count that I will show you in a minute will include the pages that I did read of the books I DNF'd, because I still read those pages, so I'm counting that. That definitely counts. So then we move on to pages that I read in the year, and this is like insane. I read 75,282 pages in 2021. Like, that is just an incredible number. Like, I'm still like in shock that I read over 70,000 pages across 200 books. It is incredible. So my page wise, my best reading month looks like it's February. I did take part in both Polathon and Woody's Roundup Readathon in February 2021, so that probably does help, because I was really motivated to read loads of books in February and I ended up absolutely smashing it. There is a very close second with May, and I think that is partly down to the fact that me and Liv had a readathon in May, although our readathon was only a week-long one. But I did also take part in Eurovisionathon, which ran from the endish of April to almost the end of May. So I was like churning out books. I was reading quite a lot in May, and then I finished Eurovisionathon, and then like a couple of days later I started my own week-long readathon, and I read a couple of chunky books in that one. So that sort of like explains that one. And with February being my best reading month, the page total for February was 8,392. However, February was not my best reading month in the sense of how many books I read. So May actually ended up being my best reading month in like the total books. So I read 22 books, which is the most I have ever read in a month. A couple of times throughout the year I hit 21 books or 20 books, but you know, I pretty much average between like 12 and 16 books a month on a normal month. So that's pretty good. What am I saying? That is really good. What am I talking about? So when we look at my reading method, you can see from this, I mostly read physical books, which is good because I have a lot of physical books. I have actually just updated my book spreadsheet, which has a lot. There's over 900 books just physical alone on there, so it's a good job that my majority is physical books. So as you can see, 77.1% of what I read in 2021 was physical, and that is 158 of the books. Then we have mixed media, which for me means I was reading the physical book whilst listening to the audiobook, or like switching between them. So that's what I class mixed media as, and that took up 11.2% of my reading, which is 23 books. I have done this quite a lot of times. I find it a really good way of focusing on some books. So for example, with the Robin Hood books, the Life Ship trilogy, I did that with those books, and I just find it easier to do it that way. And also the Spellslinger books as well, because as much as I love reading them physically, I adore the narrator for those books. So it just makes sense to mix media with those ones. And then if we look at the next one, it's ebooks. I don't read a lot of ebooks. I should, because I have so many e-arcs, which if you've seen my NetGalley check-in that I posted during Vlogmas, you will see that I'm behind and I should read more ebooks. So this took up 7.8% of my reading, which was 16. And then ones that I literally only listened to the audiobook was 3.9%, which was 8 books. So as you can see, I don't really tend to listen to many audiobooks without having the physical book there as well. But I feel like this year that might change, because there's quite a lot I want to read, which I just don't think I will read physically. So that might change a bit this year. We'll see at the beginning of next year. So I wasn't going to add this one, but I love this one. So for the main reasons for the 5 that I DNF'd, obviously on CorePile there are a few options of like what your reason for DNFing could be. You can also put your own one in, but these work so well. So 3 of the 5 books I DNF'd was because of low intrigue. 1 was poor or unclear world building, and 1 was everything is sucky. And if I remember rightly, the poor or unclear world building was actually Infinity Reaper, which we're not going to go into that, but yeah, very, very unclear and poor world building in that book. So then next up we move on to genre. It is absolutely no surprise that my main genre I read is fantasy. It is my absolute favourite genre. I love it to bits, and I'm actually quite shocked that fantasy is only 50%. So I thought it would actually be more than that, but I'm actually quite happy with that, because although I absolutely love fantasy, I do want to get into more like reading other genres, because I feel like there's a lot of books out there that aren't fantasy that I would absolutely love, and I just haven't read because they're not fantasy, and I want to try and branch out a little bit. So having said that, if you look at the other genres, my second, now I really need to reevaluate how I talk about contemporary, because contemporary was my second most read genre last year with 12.3%, which was 25 books. And considering my top 2 favourite books of the year were contemporary, I really do need to stop saying I'm not a contemporary reader, because clearly I am, and it's just a case of I might not be into all contemporary, but I'm not into all fantasy. And I don't know why I've been so set on that I'm not a contemporary reader, because I do enjoy a lot of contemporary that I do read. So yeah, I'm not really sure what I've done there with contemporary, but it's my second most read. Then the third one was 7.8% of my reading, and that was adventure. But then if we move on to my fourth most read, it's 7.4, so it's a very close one, and that is science fiction with 15 books. So adventure was 16 books, I think I forgot to say that. Science fiction was 15 books, and honestly, I'm shocked that that was so little. I definitely want to read more sci-fi this year, because I absolutely love sci-fi, and I don't know why I don't read more of it. So that's, I kind of want to, it's not like a proper goal, it's not going in any official thing, but for me, I want to try and read more sci-fi this year. Not a massive amount, but I do have an entire shelf of sci-fi, which I'm looking at right now, which I've only read about half of what's on there. So I'd like to complete reading all of that shelf, but we'll see. But one of my all-time favourite series is a sci-fi, so I don't know. But then obviously for others, I'm not going to go through every single genre, but horror, dystopia, mythology, paranormal, classic and historical fiction all were like in the single digits basically. Basically I do tend to read mostly fantasy with a bit of everything else mixed in. So the next one is the length of books read. Now, this is very, very varied here. It is very clear that I mostly read medium-sized books. So I know it's different for everyone on what they class as a small, medium and large book, but for me, 300 pages or less means it's a small book. 300 to 500 pages is a medium-sized book, and then anything over 500 pages classes as a big book for me. So we can definitely see my most read books were between 300 and 450 pages. So most of what I read is medium-sized books. However, I did read 7 books that hit in the 600 to 650 mark, and 5 that hit between the 650 and 700. And I'm going to be completely honest, I only read one, I think it's one book for over 900. There wasn't many. I actually read 14 books that were between 100 and 150 pages, and I can tell you right now, they are most likely all graphic novels or comics. Because I read quite a few of those last year, but they could also, now I'm right by it, so I'm just going to show you it. They could also be books like this, which are Little World Book Day books, which this is like 80 something pages. So just like things like that, like novellas, short stories and that, probably contributes to the smaller books as well. But yeah, medium books are my jam, essentially. So next up, we move on to star rating. Now, I'm actually very happy with myself. I used to be very generous with giving 5 stars, and honestly, using Corpile last year has really helped me start to like actually rate books more accurately to how I'm feeling about them. So last year, 30.5% of what I read got 5 stars, which that's 61 books. 61 of the 200 books I read got 5 stars. Whereas if I had this available for 2020, I can guarantee you that would have been a massive number of 5 stars, because I would just give everything 5 stars. Well, not everything, but a lot. And then we have the 4 stars, which was 52%, which was 104 books, which seems pretty accurate. I do tend to know my reading tastes, and I don't tend to pick books up that I don't think I'm going to like, obviously, because why would I? And usually I'm right about my feelings on a book. And then 16% were 3 stars, which was 32 books. And then 1.5% were 2 stars, which was only 3 books. 3 books got a 2 star. And I don't have any 1 stars, because for me, if something is that bad that it's going to get a 1 star, I DNF it. So those 5 books I DNF'd would have been 1 stars if I had forced myself to the end of the books. They would have been the 1 stars. But I don't let myself get that far, because why would I? Like, it's counterproductive for me. It's going to slump me, and I don't like doing it. If you are someone that does that, I hold my hands up to you, because I genuinely couldn't do it. So the next one is age category. Now this is one that I'm always really interested in, because even 2020, I think this would have basically been like 80% YA, but I have been branching out into reading a bit more adult, and even looking at my shelves, I have a fair amount of adult fantasy and like adult sci-fi and stuff now, which I'm really happy about, because although I love YA, I do want to be able to read more adult as well, and just vary it in general. So it's no surprise YA still was the highest one. So YA took up 53.2% of my reading last year, and that was 100 books. No surprise, that's pretty accurate. I knew it'd be over half of what I read would be YA, but what I am liking is that 22.9% of what I read was adult, and that was 47 books. It would have been nowhere near that for the like year or two before, and even before that. I never used to read adult. New adult got 3.4% with 7 books. I know some people don't really use new adult, and I don't use it often, because a lot of the time I do think it's either YA or adult. There's not many I class in that in between age category. But then if you look at middle grade, it took up 18% at 37 books, which that one I would like that to be a bit higher, because I love reading middle grade. Not only is it a light, fun read, but if you're trying to hit goals of how many books to read, they're so quick to read. And I love recommending middle grades, because I have nephews, and granted, some of them are like in the adult and YA stage now, but I have nephews that are like starting to get to the age where they're like going to be moving into like the middle grade ages, and I would love to be able to recommend them books. And I'm not going to just recommend a book that I've heard about. I want to be able to have read it first, and I enjoy middle grade so much, so I'm very happy with that. And then finally we had 2.4%, which was children's, which was 5 books, which I can tell you right now, that's probably the Tom Fletcher books, because I read Brain Freeze, Danger Gang Creakers, and the 3rd Christmasaurus book, but then I'm not sure what that 5th one is. It'd be interesting to go back and look, because I'm not... Oh, it was Gobbolino the Witch's Cat. Or was it a Roald Dahl book? I can't remember. It was an Enid Blyton book, or it was a kid's book that I read from my childhood. So yeah. So the next one is publication year. Now I don't really like... I'm not going to go through all of the years, but my biggest 2 were 2021 releases and 2020 releases. So 2021 was 22.1% at 45 books, and then 2020 releases were 20.1% with 41 books, and then everything else was obviously like 2019 and before. That doesn't really surprise me that the most I read were more recent releases, but I would kind of like to see a bit more of other years, because I have backlist books that I would like to get through. So I would like to see the others, like the older years, get a little bit more read in 2022, but we'll see how that goes. We'll see. And then the final 2 I'm going to go through. So the first one is How I Got It. I really like this one, because obviously I read... I mean, if we're going including DNFs, because let's include the DNFs, 205 books altogether, and out of those 205, 143 of them were ones I actually owned. So that's a massive massive amount. That's like 69.8% of what I read in 2021 was books I already owned, which is great because I really need to get my physical TBR down. It's over 400. Is it over 400? It's over 300. It's almost 400, I think. Then 16.1% was also from my owned TBR. It was like physical books I owned, but it was the ones I had been gifted. So although it is technically a separate part of this table, not table, chart, it still counts towards my owned, which is makes it even better, because then that means it's over 80% of what I read last year was owned, which is great. But also I'm really glad I'm actually getting to books that I've been gifted, because I don't want to, I put things on my wish list that I actually want to read. So if it's then just sitting on my shelves for like 2-3 years, why was it on my wish list? And I don't want it to be like a waste. I don't want it to feel like a wasted purchase for someone that's thought, oh, this person wants this book, I'm going to buy it for them, and then they just don't read it. I don't want to be that person. So I'm really glad I'm getting to my gifted books. And then the last amount was 14.1% of what I read, which was 29 books, which is borrowed. So this is anything I read off script. It's anything I borrow from the actual library, anything I borrow from a friend or something. So yeah, I do like to use, I know I have my own books, but I do like to use Scribd a lot. And also I like to use my local library, because libraries are important and I like to support my library. I was also very wrong, because I said the next one's going to be the last, and it's not. There's another one after this. So next up is rereads. I'm really bad with rereading books, but not as bad as I thought I was. So last year, only 29 of the books, which was 14.1%, were rereads. It was almost 90% of what I read was first time reads, which is a lot better than I thought, because I do reread a lot of books, because if they're my favourites, I like them. And like, I'm currently hosting a read along that's a set of books, that's a lot of books that I think this is my 4th time reading them. And finally, and this is the final one, Series or Standalone. I'm actually quite shocked at this one, because I thought series would be a lot bigger, but apparently I like a lot of standalones. So series was 72.7%, which was 149 books out of 205, because we're counting those 5 DNFs, because I still read some of them. So yeah, that was like a lot. It's almost 3/4 of what I read was part of a series, but I thought it would be more. But standalones got 27.3%, and it was 56 books. I didn't realise I'd read that many standalones last year, but I don't hate it, because I do. Sometimes you just want a standalone. You want something that you're going to read and it's all going to be wrapped up in one. I'm looking at you, Love Hypothesis, my favourite book of last year. So yeah, I'm quite happy with that. I do have a lot of series though, and I am quite happy with myself. I finished quite a few series last year, which I'm very happy with. Having said that, this year I would like to have a few, I would like to like log a few more different things in my stats. This is the first time I've ever done a stats video, so if it's a bit all over the place, I apologise. But yeah, if you can think of anything else that you would like to see, like how much I'm reading of like a certain thing or whatever, let me know in the comments below, because I would like to see what else I could add on the stats. But yeah, that was my first ever stats video. We'll come back again in a year and see how I go for this year. But I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, and I'll see you next time. Bye.